Now, this week we finally got to know the person poised to become Kenya's next Chief Justice following the retirement of David Maraga in January this year. In a brief ceremony at the Supreme Court premises, the Judicial Service Commission unveiled Appellate Court Judge Martha Koome as its choice following 2 weeks of intense interviews that were broadcast live on all major stations in the country. Lady Justice Martha Koome, who will now be vetted by Parliament in the coming days, if appointed, will be the first female Chief Justice in the country's history. Now that is a major feat for the 61-year-old judge in a country that is still caught up in an endless tussle over the question of gender parity in public offices. It is therefore a moment that should call for uninhibited celebration in our country. First, because Justice Koome rose from humble beginnings in rural Kenya and worked her way up, rising to various positions, first as a celebrated human rights advocate to a member of the bench. Secondly, this is cause for celebration because Justice Koome beat a strong field of 9 senior jurists and scholars to emerge as the nominee. These, ladies and gentlemen, are great odds that the judge has surmounted, and they should be the biggest conversation in this country today, or I should say that's what I think. But tonight, it is my submission that the Judicial Service Commission, sadly, is raining on Justice Koome's parade. And I will now explain. You see, when these interviews began, it was made clear that they would be conducted in public. A great thing, considering that this has been our national tradition for some time now, and for good reason, because Article 10 of our Constitution lists as some of our national values the whole question of transparency and accountability, among other noble aspirations. In fact, the Commission itself, in its communication prior to the start of the interview, stated, and I quote, "The Chief Justice is nominated by the JSC after a transparent and competitive recruitment process," end of quote. Now, the public hearings indeed provided the public with the openness that allowed them to see and hear the men and women who presented themselves for this critical position in our democracy. But now there is some grumbling about one thing that the Judicial Service Commission, for some reason, did not find necessary to do, namely, demonstrating just how competitive the process was. And one of the candidates, Fred Ngatia, for example, has spectacularly alleged that his score was changed following a phone call, or in normal Kenyan parlance, he was rigged out, he says. Just today, the Law Society of Kenya has written to the JSC demanding, among other things, that the scores for each candidate be made public. Of course, this same question came up on the day the Commission made the announcement from none other than a gang member, Francis Gashuri. But their response was simply that their only job was to get the best candidate. Now, the JSC may have its reasons for keeping the scores secret, but from where I sit, that decision may be undoing the gains of what was until Tuesday a very transparent and, yes, accountable process. You see, when a senior counsel, no less, like Fred Ngatia, makes such grave allegations that his score was changed, what are we to make of his claims in the absence of an alternative narrative? How are we to know that he did not score the 95% or so that he claims to have scored? Because think about it, if we knew today that the from JSC, that Ngatia scored, say, 50%, and here he is claiming he got 95, it would be very easy for us to tell him to sit down, be quiet, and leave us in peace. But beyond that, I believe the JSC, in choosing to make its rankings mysterious, is being totally unfair to Justice Koome. Why should they allow even the slightest doubt to linger about how they arrived at a decision when they can simply publish how it all came down to the good judge? Wouldn't that remove the cloud of conjecture that may be starting to gather around the otherwise historic nomination of Justice Koome? Now, as a brother of many sisters and a father of girls and a firm believer in gender equity, I hate to see this happen to Justice Koome at a time of such great historical significance in her brilliant career. And I believe the JSC can save her all that trouble. That's my angle for the week.